It's the Cool Kids Club. You've been invited to the Cool Kids Club. It's so exciting, yeah. Justin likes monsters, yeah. And Amy likes words in the Cool Kids Club. Cool Kids Club.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the 28th episode of the Cool Kids Club podcast. I am one of your hosts, Amy.
And I am the other titular cool kid, Justin.
Yeah.
The titular.
Yeah, see, we named it after ourselves because we're so cool.
Mm-hmm. I just love saying that word, titular.
Titular, it's a great word.
It's a great word. It rolls off the tongue very nicely.
It rolls, yes it does.
How
Titular.
are you, Amy?
I am all right. I've been a little under the weather with allergies the last few days, but aside from that, I am doing peachy keen. How about yourself?
Oh, just wonderful. Just wonderful.
Just wonderful. We're coming off Easter weekend. Did you do anything particular for Easter weekend?
No, I didn't. I did have a long weekend. Took an extra day. In addition to the day I already got off. So I had a little bit of a long weekend and just slept a lot, watched a lot of movies, and got a couple little around the house projects done, but that's about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Got this podcast together.
Yeah, you sure did. I went to Nashville to visit some friends who are probably listening. Spent the weekend with them. Saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. Have you watched that yet?
No, I have not.
Oh, very good. Think you would enjoy it. And yeah,
I got a lot of stuff, movies and all that I need to catch up on, newer stuff.
Yeah.
I'm probably just gonna, now that it's on HBO, I'm probably just gonna watch The Batman again for the third
yeah,
time.
I was gonna say, well, we went and saw that together.
Well, I went to the theater a couple times, and I'll probably just watch it again because it's real good.
It's very good. So yeah, that's what's been new with us. But we're not here to talk about new stuff.
No,
we're here to talk about old stuff.
We don't talk about new shit.
No, we don't. And this episode, we're talking about old shit that's about even older shit.
Older shit.
Yeah.
It is generation spanning nostalgia.
Yes.
I gotta say, I'm particularly excited. This episode, if you haven't figured it out by now, by clicking on it, is about Nick at Nite.
Night.
I have discovered in doing this podcast, really, that our Nickelodeon episodes tend to be some of my favorites to do. I think I could do a whole podcast just about 80s, 90s, early aughts Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah, there's just so many topics. I mean, not just the shows, but the stuff that we have done. Like Nick Studios, Snick, Nick at Night. Just all these different facets.
And it kind of has made me realize, Nickelodeon has got to be one of the biggest parts of my childhood. One of the biggest influences, as a whole, because there's just so much that they did in those years that has stuck with me into adulthood that I just look back on so fondly. I love old Nickelodeon stuff.
Oh yeah. And I know we've talked about it before about how we didn't have the Disney Channel when we were young because it was still a pay channel. So for us, our kid content was Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as we get a little bit older, we'd watch our TGIF and things like that, but all throughout the week, kid content, it was Nickelodeon.
I don't know if you're talking about getting older. I was watching TGIF when Perfect Strangers and shit was on.
Well, yeah, but I guess that was just once a week. That was just once a week.
It was on F. It was on F.
Yeah, it was on F. Yeah, F nights, FPM. But we are here to talk about Nick at Night today, and Nick at Night, I think. Certainly for a lot of us, introduced us to the shows that our parents grew up with and loved. And surprisingly, as we will talk about, the younger audience, the kids who were watching Nickelodeon the rest of the time, was the demographic that was watching a lot of Nick at Night as well. You would think, Nick at Night, this is just for the parents. The kids who were watching Nickelodeon, us included, were also watching and loving Nick at Night, even though these shows were 20, 30 years old.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that and some of the, the really memorable and fun and cool branding and aesthetic and kind of, and it was very, I mean, it appealed to kids. The branding, the advertising, and promotions appealed to kids our age.
Yeah.
And got us watching shows that, we probably wouldn't normally have sought out, being kids in the 90s.
Who would think you would care about Green Acres? Can I still sing the entire theme song to this day? Obviously.
Well, sure.
Because you
can't bring it up without singing it, so I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want to hear it. Give me a couple bars. Give me a couple bars. You don't have to do the whole thing.
All right. Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, just give me that countryside. Do. New York is where I'd rather see. Then you gotta get
Oh no! It was just getting good.
I get allergic smelling hay. I just adore a penthouse view. Darling, I love you, but give me Park Avenue.
Yay! I will say I'm glad that we have evolved, because I feel like in the earlier days of the podcast, when I would do things like that and put you on the spot and be like, "Oh, you said you know that song, huh? Why don't you sing it a little bit?" You'd clam up and be like, "Oh, I don't want to. And now,
I've already. And now
you don't. Not only do you not hesitate, but we're getting full on Zsa Zsa Gabor voice.
You gotta do Zsa Zsa.
Having to ask.
No, you gotta do Zsa Zsa. I mean,
you gotta do Zsa Zsa.
You gotta Zsa.
Yeah.
When it calls for it, you gotta Zsa. Man, a lot of great theme songs back in these days.
Oh my
god. Before we jump too far into the programming, and the lifelong impact that Nick at Night has had on us, let's go back to the beginning, as we always do.
Always do.
Because we are first and foremost educators. So
it's true.
As we always say. So let's go back and talk about kind of how Nick at Night as a brand, as a thing, came about.
Well, so in the mid 80s, around 1984, because Nickelodeon had been around, since the 70s.
Right.
But sort of pre 1984 Nickelodeon is sort of a different animal.
And we talk about that in our Snick episode, which was one of our earliest episodes. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. You can find that in the archives.
Apologies for the audio on that. We were working out some kinks. Justin said that was like one of the most listened to episodes, and I was like, "Oh, that makes sense."
It is one of our most downloaded episodes, and it's our worst sounding episode.
It's our worst sounding episode. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so Nickelodeon kind of they had this extensive rebrand, right? New marketing, new logos, new promotions, new shows, and at this time in the evening, so. If you, even people our age, I think often don't really remember, because it was kind of on the way out. But TV networks used to sign off at night, after a certain time, they just would
do the
go
national
away.
Anthem, or
they'd
whatever,
do the national anthem, and they'd go away. However, at this time, they would have kind of various, like after the kids programming ended, at say like 7:00. In the evening. After that, they would have various kind of programming geared more toward adults, usually some kind of entertainment, some kind of arts type of show. And actually, the birth of Nick at Night comes from, there was a merger, basically. We won't get into all the details of who bought whom and all that good stuff. But essentially, there was a merger.
Assume it was Ted Turner, because he owned everything, but...
It was not Ted Turner.
Shocked.
Yeah. But... they decided to take this more adult programming that they were doing in the evening and spin it off into its own 24-hour network. And that network became A&E.
I had no idea until I read through the notes.
Which stands for Arts and Entertainment. Yeah. And that was the birth of A&E. A&E was spun off from the evening programming that Nickelodeon aired before Nick at
No,
Night.
I feel like A&E's biggest show back then was Biography. Well, I don't know if
that's
in the
still
80s,
a huge show. That's still a huge show.
Yeah.
And don't worry, I am going to lament the current state of cable television.
It is
Biography's still on, and Biography's still a good show. So they originally, they being Nickelodeon, pronouns pal.
Yes.
They originally attempted to sort of create. There were ideas batted around, like, what do we do with this time now?
Right.
Do we create our own original programming for the block? And that didn't ever really pan out. They tried a couple of ideas, and it didn't really work.
Yeah.
So Geraldine Laybourne, who was the head of Nickelodeon, who we have talked
Loved
about,
her.
the Queen,
Yes.
Queen Geraldine,
Yes.
really the person responsible for spearheading a lot of the things that we love and remember about this golden age of Nickelodeon.
Molding our childhoods.
Yeah,
Geraldine.
absolutely. So she gets two gentlemen, Alan Goodman and Fred Siebert. They had just worked on the Nickelodeon rebrand.
Yes, which we also discussed in the Snick episode.
Right.
They were the guys that did the MTV stuff.
They are the guys that came up with the original marketing and promotion.
Because this was when we started getting the orange and white.
Well, and Nickelodeon, as a network, was owned by MTV, so this was all sort of connected. So she gets these two guys in who they had worked with a lot, obviously, in the past, and have a great track record at this point to come up with programming ideas. What do we do with this evening block of time?
Right.
And so they had been presented with what got it started was they were presented with over 200 episodes of the Donna Reed Show. Which
very
is
old school.
Just a very quintessential, like, stereotypical 1950s sitcom. Donna Reed. I am most familiar with Donna Reed probably from It's a Wonderful Life, as she plays Mary in It's a Wonderful Life. But this show ran for years and years, and funny enough, Geraldine Laybourne absolutely hated that show.
Yeah, I can see that because it's very classic 50s traditional gender roles.
Like when you think of
very...
or when WandaVision, right?
Yes.
To use a more modern reference, when WandaVision's doing the 50s sitcom thing,
it's clearly very Donna Reed.
It's very Donna Reed. I mean, lots of other shows as well, but Donna Reed's one of those. It's the happy housewife, and the husband comes home, and it's like Leave It to Beaver type of stuff.
Right, but whereas Leave It to Beaver, the storylines are usually more about Beaver and the kids.
The Beef.
Like, the Beef. The Donna Reed show, she was the star, so it was
about the
her.
Reed.
It was about the Reed. And this was, like you said, one of the biggest shows of that time. And so when they get 200 episodes of it, they're like, well, we've got some time to fill. Let's put on 100 hours of the Donna Reed show.
So I love that the idea came together with these. They have all these episodes of this old sitcom. And around this time, as you and I very well know, oldies radio stations had become really popular.
Yes.
Playing, quote unquote, the classics. Stuff from the 50s and 60s.
Yes.
Mainly. Appealing to the nostalgia of that baby boomer generation, our parents' generation,
and 40s, right, at the time,
who want to listen to the music they grew up on. So this was becoming a big thing, and you and I, and that's a topic for another show, listened to a lot of that stuff.
A lot.
Growing up. So that was already kind of that culture of 50s and 60s. We were already sort of, you and I at least, were sort of familiar with a lot of that through the music. But they sort of conceived this programming block of what if we did that? But instead of music, it's TV shows. Right. It's old TV shows. And so they started...
Which is such a great concept. I mean,
obviously, and they pitched it as the first... This is the first oldies TV network.
That's so cool.
It's how they pitched it.
Yeah.
They created branding, bumpers, a new logo. They wanted to separate it from... This was not Nickelodeon. Yes. This has its own branding. This has its own thing. And kind of never the two shall meet.
Because Nickelodeon was for kids. Like,
and this is
kids,
not.
as we've talked about, like, was like the first thing where they were creating programming for kids, not for families, but for kids. And Nick at Night, of course, was, for the whole family.
Right. But it was also family-friendly thing. It was also family-friendly shows. So when we say it was geared toward adults, these were still shows that were fine for the kids to watch.
Right.
So, for instance, like the very first, the original lineup, July 1st, 1985.
I wasn't even born yet.
I was a wee lass.
You were just
a wee lass, I say.
Yeah.
July 1st, 1985, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Of course.
The original Nick at Night lineup was Dennis the Menace. Another very old school sitcom, which was also a comic. I think everyone.
I do not remember watching that show at all, but I remember watching that movie constantly.
I love the 90s Dennis the Menace movie with Walter
Matthau.
It's
and
wonderful.
The chiclet teeth. Yes, and it is wonderful.
Now we got to do an episode about that, because now that I'm thinking about it,
that's not even on our list. What is wrong with us?
It's not even on the idea list. God. Okay, so you have Dennis the Menace, the Donna Reed Show, of course.
Well, they got 200 of them. They gotta
burn these off. An old sort of drama, like sort of action show called Route 66.
Never heard of that. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it.
Okay.
I think it was kind of like a adventure serial kind of thing.
Okay.
They also had a really strange sketch comedy show, an original sketch comedy show.
I was going to say, was this original?
It was original, and it was made by the same people who did, out of Canada, who did You Can't Do That on Television. And I believe it only ran for like one season. And some of
I'm looking it up right now.
Some of it, I believe, is on YouTube. I believe I saw some of it on there, but I haven't watched. I watched a clip or two, but that's it.
Interesting.
And then they would do.
This looks vaguely familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they would do at 9 p.m. They had the Nick at Night movie, where they would show They would show old movies from like the 30s, 40s, 50s. They showed like the original, like A Star Is Born.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like they would have like, and everything was in an hour block, right?
Yeah.
So you would get an hour of Dennis the Menace, an hour of Donna Reed Show, and then like Route 66, and then the movie, or something along those lines, right?
Okay.
And so the movie was like kind of, and then it would basically just repeat until like 1 o'clock in the morning,
right?
And then
they would sign off.
And then they would sign off and come back at like 6 a.m. when Nickelodeon programming started.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Okay.
So
I find TV programming fascinating, by the way.
Do what?
I find TV programming fascinating.
I'm glad you say that, because I do too. And that's a really
it makes me really sad that it's not
a lost
art
it seems
anymore.
to be a lost art. Yes.
Because really
honestly,
is.
I would love to have if TV was still like this, I may have pursued a career in television, because I would love to like create programming for a network.
I want to take like data and use it to create like
we're
best
such
programming.
Huge nerds.
God. Yep.
In the words of Kenneth Parcell, there's only two things in this world I love: everyone and television.
That's exactly right. Kenneth Parcell.
Yeah, so this was basically like a 5-hour block of Nick at Night that would run twice until 1 o'clock in the morning. But then, so they would have this they would sign off for a few hours.
Right.
But that was really only initially because
they quit doing that. Yeah.
They started airing old SNL, and the original
crazy.
SNL, like original cast SNL, and SCTV, which I want to say was the first time I ever saw SCTV. Which, if you're unfamiliar, SCTV is Second City Television, which was out of Canada.
Which of course launched the careers of many people we love.
Many people. John Candy, Rick Moranis, Eugene Levy,
Catherine O'Hara, John Candy. Did you say John Candy?
Extremely influential show. So kind of the Canadian Saturday Night Live, sort of.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So they started airing, SNL and SCTV reruns like late at night. And I remember getting a little older, and they would still do that every once in a while. And I remember watching SCTV like in the middle of the night. In fact, I remember being in Florida after we had moved. I think we were visiting our grandparents.
Okay.
And staying up super late because it was like I didn't get to stay up that late. Normally, it was like a vacation for me. And they didn't care if I sat out there and watched TV all night. And I remember sitting out there and watching SCTV.
Really?
At like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. Yeah.
That's crazy.
In their living room. Yeah. So it is impossible to talk about all of the shows that have been included in Nick at Night. It's impossible. So I kind of broke this up. I kind of broke this up. So it starts in 85, like we said.
Yep.
So I want you to tell us about some of the kind of the bigger shows, the bigger named shows that people might be familiar with that were a part of this Nick at Night. And then we're going to get into a lot of the sort of promotion and like a lot of the because it really hits its stride in the 90s.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
So, like you said, started in 85. You've got this original lineup, Dennis the Menace, Donna Reed Show, Route 66. But then...
Turkey Television.
Well, on Turkey Television... What was the other episode we did the turkey thing for? Oh, it was wrestling. There was wasn't there a giant turkey?
Oh, the Gobbledygooker.
Thank you. I was going to say, I feel like this is not the first time we've done turkey noises on this podcast. So then... So you got the latter half of the 80s, and you've got all these different shows debuting on Nick at Night. Some of the heavier hitters were Mr. Ed.
Oh, now Mr. Ed.
Of course. I like that you put "of course" in the notes. I did.
That was my only note on Mr. Ed is of course.
Of course, obviously.
I used to love watching Mr. Ed, and I remember watching Mr. Ed a lot with Dad.
Yes, he thought it was so funny.
There is nothing funnier in the world, besides farts, to our dad than a horse that could talk.
You're exactly right. Mm-hmm. And remember the little like trivia that they would give him peanut butter?
They would feed him peanut butter to make his mouth move
his mouth move. Yep. Oh, Mr. Ed. My Three Sons.
Wilbur.
My Three Sons ran for 12 years originally.
Yes. Yeah. My Three Sons ran from 1960 to 1972. It's like the Vietnam War.
Jesus, yeah.
It's like as long as Vietnam.
God. A few less casualties, but...
Well, just a couple. Just a few.
Man, that's a lot of
My
years.
Three Sons, though, they reran My Three Sons for a long time.
Now, I remember our mom saying she used to like My Three Sons.
I don't really recall watching My Three Sons very much.
Yeah, I would catch it occasionally. It was not a fave. It was no Mr. Ed. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah. This one...
They didn't have a talking horse, so you lose a couple points in my book right there. I feel
like every show that didn't have a talking horse just paled in comparison.
You get a half star deducted from my rating. For the lack of a talking horse.
Now I will accept
which is why there's only like 1 or 2 5-star shows for me. I can't think of any others that have talking horses, but
I will accept other talking animals, such as Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Yeah. I will accept those, but
not the same.
It's not the same. Make Room for Daddy, which is a disgusting name. Also, the Danny Thomas Show.
I don't remember this one at all.
No,
this was
not
another
at all.
one of those 1950s sitcoms.
Yeah.
Danny Thomas, I think, was.
I honestly don't remember watching or enjoying really any of the 50s ones. Mm-hmm. It was really the 60s that I liked. I
remember these shows make me think. I remember the ads for them. And I remember they would show, and of course, all these shows that we're talking about, or most of these shows at this point, are black and white shows.
Yes.
And I remember just the bold, and it was kind of before that, like, you know how they sort of did the rebrand again in around like 90, 91, and that's sort of like what we really, really think of as like prime Nickelodeon with Slime and Nick Studios and all that good stuff. But in these kind of years, like the late 80s, 85 to 90 or so, when I was really first starting to watch Nickelodeon, I remember those ads, and I remember the big block white letters, and it was like it had the same voiceover. It was like Dennis the Menace. Blah 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 at blah 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 time, and
it felt very much like the actual ads from that time would have been. That's how it felt to me.
Yes. And I feel like I'm not articulating it well, but if you were around back then and saw those ads, if I pulled it up, you'd know exactly the ads I'm talking about. Yeah. And they had them with some of the other shows we're going to talk about, like Lassie and Mr. Wizard, which wasn't a Nick at Night show, but they had those.
Let's just go ahead and play one of those.
Lassie, every day on Nickelodeon.
Do you remember those?
Oh yeah, I definitely remember those.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'd have like a little Nickelodeon. That Lassie one had like a little Nickelodeon orange splat in the corner.
A little splat.
Just a little sploop.
And they had those commercials a lot, I think, for Nick Jr. at the time too, because you had like they would show like Mr. Wizard and Lassie and stuff was more like Nick Jr.
Yes. You also had the Patty Duke show. Here's what I think about it. Patty Duke, didn't she like have bipolar, and wasn't that like a big thing she like later in life? That's what I think of when I think of Patty Duke.
I'm not familiar enough with Patty Duke. She didn't join the Manson family or something, did she?
No, I think you're thinking of Patty Hearst.
I'm thinking of Patty Hearst.
What's the SLA or whatever?
Didn't she like join a military junta?
Yeah, it
South
was
America
Patty Hearst.
Or something. I don't know.
Different. I don't think Patty Hearst had a 60s TV show.
I don't know. I wasn't around.
Don't know. Motherfucking Looney Tunes, y'all.
Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes, you'll find on Nick at Night. Conflicts you and solve with dynamite. Passion, come feel the passion. The cruel seduction, the self-destruction. The greed, the valor, terrifying power. Experiments go sour for half an hour. Nick at Night, power, passion, valor, cruel seduction, self-destruction. Looney Tunes.
There's a reason that the Tunes were so big in the 90s. Like this, like research, I mean, like everybody had like a jean jacket with Tweety Bird on it.
From our modern pop culture is
Completely
the presence of the Looney Tunes.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that, and it was because the Looney Tunes fucking slap, and I love them.
And you had several channels that would run Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies reruns. You had Nickelodeon doing it. Cartoon Network would air them. So I mean,
if you played,
these are old.
Were paying attention, you could do 6-7 hour blocks of Looney Tunes if you were paying attention. If you were just switched through your channels, yeah,
and I would.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Love Looney Tunes,
and I would. I remember, and I'm sorry, I keep derailing us, but I remember.
No, you're fine. This is a nostalgia podcast. It should be about what we remember.
Hey, do you remember? I remember there being kind of like this interim of like in the evenings, and this is like later in the 90s, where it's like you'd have the regular Nickelodeon program during the day, and you'd have like the Nicktoons or whatever, but then you would have like this kind of in between where before like Nick at Night proper started, and they would show things like Looney Tunes. And I remember it being like around dinner time.
Like during dinner time. Yeah, I was just going to say during dinner time. Yeah.
And another big one was The Muppet Show.
Yes.
Looney Tunes and The Muppet Show, I remember very distinctly watching. They would air them around dinner time. It was kind of in those in-between hours before like real Nick at Night started at like 7 or so.
I have a deep, deep love for The Muppets. Like
Muppets and Looney Tunes, man.
And then Muppet Babies and Tiny Toons.
I love a baby version of something I already love. Give me a baby version of it, and I'm
just
probably gonna like it.
Yeah. Oh man, we don't do that enough nowadays. We don't have baby versions.
You know, at the risk of this turning into just like I'm an old man, get off my yard, things were better when I was a kid. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. We don't do it enough baby versions of already established IP.
But also, I am old and get off my lawn. So
yeah,
you know what? I feel like I feel like, you know, it's something we've earned by growing older. Like, we now get to the old crotchety people.
Curmudgeon-y, yeah.
Yeah.
I like being curmudgeon-y.
It's like Nick Miller says, he's just growing into his personality. He's just aging into his personality.
That's absolutely what I'm doing.
Yeah, 100%.
I've been an angry old man since I was like 15.
Right. So, you're just finally
I'm actually becoming one now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, back to Nick at Nite.
Some other heavy hitters from this time period. Well, of course, you got Green Acres.
I won't
don't need to sing the song
Thank
again.
you for that.
Bewitched. Love Bewitched. He used to love watching Bewitched.
Hachi Machi.
Now, Dad had a big old crush on Elizabeth Montgomery. I mean, who wouldn't, though?
Any red-blooded American man.
I was just gonna say the same thing.
Probably had a crush on Elizabeth Montgomery, and you know, little 8-year-old me also had a crush on Elizabeth Montgomery.
Sure.
As well as Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, yeah.
What we're gonna talk about
that came a little later, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Lassie. Like we were just talking about this Lassie promo. Lassie. So yeah, you'd have Lassie.
Lassie ran from 1954 to 1973. It ran for 19 years in its original
dog
run.
Did not live that long.
Most dogs do not live that long.
I think they're pulling a fast one on us. I'm going to say that was not the same dog. Does Lassie die in the end? Because I can't imagine.
I can't imagine those last couple seasons aren't just really sad about him just growing old.
He's not saving anybody from a well. He can't even. Poor thing. He's got arthritis. Just let Lassie.
Now I've made myself sad. Thinking about a dog dying. Aww.
19 years.
19 years.
I'm
sure it was different dogs.
I feel like they swapped those dogs out on us.
Swapped them out about every year or two.
Yep. That was not the OG Lassie in 73.
No, they probably switched them out like they switched out the Stooges. You know how there's like the main ones, but then there's all these other ones that were later, you know,
right.
Where it wasn't.
Or it'd be like the Olsen
Stooges.
Twins on Full House, and you never knew who it was. You know,
because
of child labor laws. This was dog labor laws.
Canine labor laws.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just making shit up now.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had all these shows debuting from basically the start of Nick at Nite on into about 1990. But in 1987, they did this really interesting contest. Do you want to talk about the contest that they did?
Yeah, actually, as we record, I just posted about it on Instagram and Twitter just a few minutes ago, actually. 1987, they ran a contest. And the contest was called the Do-It-Yourself Sitcom Contest, or whatever. Do-It-Yourself
Classic.
Sitcom. Yeah. And in which viewers could submit and film their ideas for a sitcom. And theoretically, the winner would have their show picked up.
Yeah.
And they aired a special. They aired it a couple times with people's like sitcoms that like real people, and there's weird sitcoms that they had filmed at home.
Yeah.
Which I really want to find. I don't think it's all I don't think the whole thing is on YouTube, or at least I couldn't find it. Maybe someone out there knows where I could watch that. But in 1988, the next year, they did air what was the winner of the contest. Uh-huh. And the winner of the contest was an animated Christmas special called Tattertown. Oh. And this is on YouTube.
Not Tatertown?
It's Tattertown. Tater would
I'd be
only
more interested if it were taters.
Well, yeah, and fixins.
You know the sides are the best part of any meal.
Well, if you're gonna have a tater, you gotta have some fixins.
Well, of course. You got your cheese, you got your bacon bits, you got your butter. Classic fix.
But again, we're not talking about potatoes or fixins. We're talking about a Christmas special called Tattertown. This was not picked up. However, they sort of rebranded it and called it Christmas in Tattertown. And for several years, like into the 90s, they would air it at Christmas as like a.
And you said that you
Christmas
can find
special.
that one on.
That is on YouTube. I was watching a little bit of it, yeah.
Do you think that at some point we'll have done this podcast for so many years that our Christmas tape episode is going to have to include Christmas in Tattertown because we have run out of all other Christmas specials?
There's a lot of fucking Christmas specials. I feel like I'm definitely not going to live that long to get through all of them.
Okay, well, you just never know.
So this
Stay
was kind
tuned.
of this was the first instance of Nick at Night attempting original programming. They also did. I don't know if you remember.
Didn't go well.
Yeah,
I mean, it went okay.
it went okay. I would love to watch this. I also would love to find. They did a special that was just retro commercials. And,
oh my god!
Yeah. And that was apparently a huge hit, and they did it again a couple times, and then we're going to talk about TV Land in a minute. TV Land kind of used that idea as well, like as sort of bumpers. They would do these; they called them retro-mercials segments, where they would show a couple retro commercials before like the modern ones.
So, I mean, we've talked on here many times about how we like to just put on, usually themed around maybe Halloween or Christmas, but not always. Just put on 80s or 90s commercial compilations that people have made on YouTube. Yes. So clearly there's a market for this. They were already doing this type of thing. And I feel like we should be doing it more.
Yes.
Frankly. And now,
I think more of my time should be spent watching commercials from when I was a child.
Well, what else am I supposed to do? Contribute to society? No,
you got me. Fine. I don't know.
Yeah. No. Watch Tattertown. Eat
watch
potatoes.
Watch Tattertown while I eat some taters with fixins.
While I go to Tatertown.
Well, now we have to do this Christmas. All right.
This Christmas,
mark it on your calendar. This Christmas,
we're gonna have a baked potato bar.
Taters and tatters.
Taters.
It's gonna be
and
a
we're gonna watch
party.
Tattertown.
We're gonna have a tater bar with lots of fixins, and we're gonna watch Christmas in Tattertown from 1988.
And then we're gonna do like an Instagram live where we debrief it.
While still eating taters.
Well, what am I gonna stop eating taters for the live? No. Right. Of course not. Now, what else did they did something called? Like, they did, like, an original sitcom where they tried to make it look 60s or 50s.
So, we may have mentioned this in the TGIF episode, because there's a TGIF Nick at Night crossover here.
Yes, we did.
It was called Hi, Honey, I'm Home. And it started out where it aired on TGIF first. And then it would air on Nickelodeon. And then they cut it from TGIF, and then it ran for like another season and a half or 2 seasons on Nick at Night. So this was an original show.
That was like one of the first TGIF shows or something. Wasn't it like part of the original lineup or something?
It was pretty early on.
Yeah.
And the concept is great, right? So the concept is a 1950s sitcom family, Pleasantville. Sort of thing.
I was going to say,
Donna Reed show. A 1950s sitcom family has their show canceled, and they have to leave TV Land, where they live with all the other sitcom people, and move into a real 90s suburb. So you get they have to move into the real world. So it's you get lots of culture clashes.
It's both a 50s sitcom and a 90s sitcom.
Yes, it's like let's transplant people from this 1950s sitcom into the present day, and all the funny fish out of water things that happen as a result.
Oh, that sounds like a great concept.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched this show? Have you ever seen any episodes of it?
I have seen 1 or 2 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think are they on?
I think it could have worked. Yeah, there's some of those on YouTube for sure, if not all of them.
Huh. So that takes us up into the early 90s, where we add in a whole bunch of new shows.
This is where Nick at Night really comes into its own, as did all of Nickelodeon. really come into its own once the 90s hit.
Yes. A glorious time.
Tell us about some of these the shows that debuted in the early 90s. So they would do kind of like these, and they would also cycle shows out.
Yes.
So, like, they would do, like, okay, we're cycling out Mr. Ed.
Right.
We're not going to have it anymore to make room for new shows that we have acquired. But they would kind of do, like, a little fanfare thing to say goodbye to Mr. Ed. We're doing a marathon with our favorite Mr. Ed episodes or something to say goodbye. And there were other shows like that, too. And then they would also do a lot of these, like they would do marathons and lots of, like, promotional stuff.
If they had a new show coming.
If they had a new show coming.
Right.
So tell us about some of the, like, early 90s, you know, they're hitting their stride. Nickelodeon Studios is open. They're a big, giant, Nickelodeon's a big deal now. And
so Nick at Night is becoming
and Nick at Night is now a pretty big deal as well.
So they're getting some, like, really heavy hitters like Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke Show. I mean, those were
and
huge.
They got Dick Van Dyke himself.
They did get Dick Van Dyke.
So they had these little vignettes where they would... so they called it was like TV Land. Before it was a network.
Before they made the channel, they called this, like, TV Land. Yeah.
And Dick Van Dyke would do these... He filmed these, like, vignettes. These little bumper vignettes that were, like, little funny things. And he was the chairman of TV Land.
Yeah. Because, I mean, arguably one of the biggest stars from that era. Oh, God,
yeah. I mean,
with one of the longest running shows. I mean, and he's still alive today. He's got to be like 100.
Still kicking ass.
Still kicking ass, yeah.
Yep.
So you had really heavy hitters like that. I Love Lucy, and the Lucy Show.
I Love Lucy was huge. And I remember a lot of these.
I watched it all the time.
You know, I remember, like, them like, it felt like an event when a new show was coming. They would promote it so well with these fun, like, quirky commercials and marathons, and it was like, oh my God, I Love Lucy is coming to Nick at Night. Like, why the hell would I give a shit? This show's been
off the air for 20 years.
Why would I give a shit? But I did.
Yeah. I did. I really did.
You know, and Mary Tyler Moore was I never watched that too much, but I probably would appreciate it more as an adult, I think.
Yeah. I feel like that.
Mork and Mindy. I remember watching some Mork and Mindy.
Oh, God. Loved Mork and Mindy. Loved the Partridge Family.
Nanu. Partridge Family was a little too campy for me.
Well, sure.
As was Brady Bunch.
And I don't see Brady Bunch on this list. Does that not get added until later?
You know, it was on Nick at Night, but not for too long.
I feel like that must have been right before TV Land, which we'll talk about in a minute, became a channel, because it was on that all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked Partridge Family, but very campy.
Oh my God. Yeah, a lot of singing, which we know how I feel about that. Dragnet and Get Smart. Those were big ones for them too.
Yes.
A lot of marketing. Merchandise even for these shows that they were.
Oh, I know, that's so crazy. Like, they started making merchandise for this stuff.
Yeah.
For, like, these really old shows. It's so bizarre.
Bob Newhart. So there's all kinds of Bob Newhart shows. And what was the? Okay, I'm gonna Nick at Night, Bob Newhart marathon, because they did a.
You've tagged a parody theme song. Is that what you meant to look?
No, but it's really funny. So basically, there's a lot of Bob Newhart shows. There's a show just called Newhart. There was a third sitcom called Bob, and then there was the Bob Newhart Show.
And then wasn't he also on Mary Tyler Moore, or am I thinking of somebody else?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they ran a block when they acquired that third sitcom, and I think they already had the other two. Where they called it Bob Newhart Marathon, which I love. Just like I love this weird, funny, like tongue-in-cheek.
I know.
Like that. They were so
and Nickelodeon was so good at it. Exactly.
Do yourself a favor, Amy.
And
just click on that Bob Newhart parody theme song commercial, which is an actual Nick at Night commercial. And
all right.
It got me laughing pretty good. It's pretty fun. It sounds like something I would do.
Bob Newhart, Bob Newhart, Bob Newhart, Bob. Newhart, Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart, 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 here on Nick at Night.
Here on Nick at Night.
That's too good. Well, do you remember which came first? Newhart, Bob Newhart.
No, I don't,
Bob.
because that was all before I was born, and I didn't go that deep into my research. Maybe I should have.
Oh, yeah. How dare you? Also, I remember watching this a few times. The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis.
Yeah,
do you
that
remember
had
that one?
Bob Crane, who played Gilligan on Gilligan's Island.
Oh, that's right.
That was pre-Gilligan's Island Bob Crane.
Oh, now Gilligan... Was Gilligan one of the ones added later? I can't remember.
Was on later, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there
Gilligan
were other channels certainly doing retro TV, especially in the 90s at this point. So, I mean...
Right.
Yeah, I think they did show Gilligan's Island there for a while. But it wasn't one of the ones that was big enough, I didn't think, to warrant mentioning too much.
Yeah. So they had, they continued to involve the audience with a lot of different like gimmicks and contests and things. And in 1990, they did a contest where they had Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yes, which I love.
Yes,
Alfred Hitchcock Presents is a great show, Twilight Zone-esque anthology thriller show.
Oh yeah. So the viewers at home had to correctly guess the number of deaths in an Alfred Hitchcock Presents marathon. My favorite part of this is that the prize for winning was a family cemetery plot.
Yeah. Well, this was October of 1990. I assume it was a Halloween thing.
It was a spooky thing.
It was a spooky thing. And yeah,
just
that was the...
Everything about Nickelodeon and Nick at Night seemed very Canadian, and and Canadian humor. And we've talked about how, when they first started, they acquired a lot of shows that were Canadian.
A lot of Canadian produced stuff, yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of the people behind the scenes were Canadian. And you just had this, I can't, it's like British humor. Like, I can't put my finger on it.
Like you think like giving away a family burial plot as a contest prize is Canadian humor?
Apparently. It's like
I will say that they
I just know it when I see it, like...
Sure, yeah. I will say that I think they realized kind of how morbid that is. And changed the prize from a burial plot to a murder mystery cruise. So,
I mean, I'd like to win a burial plot. Those aren't cheap,
Yeah, I don't want to be buried though.
Yeah, that's true. I would just bury like awesome shit in it, like a time capsule.
Buried treasure and shit.
Yeah, or I'd just bury like my own ashes. Well, I wouldn't be doing any of this. You would, but.
Me?
No.
I would bury my own Nickelodeon time capsule, like the one that they did at Nickelodeon Studios, and it would have like a tape of
You'd have Joey Lawrence like unearth it in 30 years.
Yes. Thank you, Joey.
Was it Joey who did it? Who was it?
It was Joey. Yeah.
It was Mike O'Malley. Yeah, and Joey. Yeah.
I love the kitschy marketing. And the marketing was really aimed at a younger audience. It was really aimed at that 90s audience. And I think that's what drew us in so much was it was this colorful, funny, kitschy, tongue-in-cheek advertising that made
8-year-olds watch Bob Newhart.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know
And the thing is, these shows are good, a lot of them, and they have value, and some of them seem dated, but some of them are kind of timeless. And
that's I think what a lot of it is, Justin, is that they are timeless in a lot of ways, and that humor is not so specific to that time period. With some of them, sure, but with others, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're watching it even now, it still holds up. It's still funny, and it's still relatable for people.
Right.
Even though no one has a cell phone, like, I mean, it's just, right. But it's still so relatable.
So a couple other marketing things that I wanted to mention that I thought was just super fun. Smell-O-Vision.
Yes.
They did a gimmick where you could go to certain stores or gas stations and you could buy these scratch and sniff cards, like trading cards, that you could collect. And then on a specific date and time, you could watch your Nick at Night and scratch the card and smell along with the show.
What a dumb, weird idea that I kind of love.
I love it.
I do too.
Examples.
But it's so weird.
Examples are there's one for the Donna Reed show, which was pot roast and perfume. And another one was your favorite, Green Acres, which was grass and horse manure.
Horse manure?
Yes.
Why would they do that?
Well, that's what it smells like in Green Acres.
I would have thought Mr. Ed. Mr. Ed could have been peanut butter.
Well, they probably didn't have Mr. Ed on there anymore. Peanut butter. Peanut butter and horse shit.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Summer horse grave.
My favorite. Yeah, they were always coming up with just like kitschy, weird. Well, I mean, just like they did with the Nickelodeon.
Yeah. Like,
it was the same thing.
It has the vibe, just like regular for kids Nickelodeon, of like so much creative freedom that it's like, we're just gonna do shit that entertains us. And we think it's gonna entertain you too.
If it doesn't, okay, it flopped.
It's like not everything works. That's fine.
Yeah.
Here's another little marketing thing they did. One year on St. Patrick's Day, they just tinted all the shows green.
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I really do. I remember that.
Just tinted everything had a green filter over it.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for funsies. Just one day.
Year.
You know what? If they don't like it, let's just one day.
Let's just one day. Yeah. The regular colored shows will be back.
They'll be back tomorrow. Which is to say black and white. For the most part.
Right.
And we had some colored shows in there, but...
to promote a Donna Reed show marathon once, they had 30 women, 30 Donna Reed lookalikes,
God.
dressed as Donna Reed from the Donna Reed show, run the Chicago Marathon. Again, like, what? What the hell? It's just like, who thought of that? Who thought of like, you know what? You know how we promote this? The Chicago Marathon.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a bunch of women dressed up like a TV show character from 30 years ago.
Yeah. Perfect choice.
Hey, and it worked. It worked for them, right?
It did. A lot of things were working for Nick at Night as we go into the 90s. And I feel like mid-90s particular was the height of Nick at Night popularity.
It was the peak.
It was the pinnacle. Yeah.
The pinnacle.
You started having even bigger shows like Taxi was added in.
Love Taxi.
Love Taxi.
There's maybe no more soothing TV show theme song than the theme to Taxi.
Ooh, that is a sweet jam.
Ooh, it's a good one.
Ooh. Also, I Dream of Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie, yes. Very important and informative for me. Influential to young prepubescent Justin.
I'm sure. Welcome Back, Kotter, with a young, studly John Travolta.
Yep.
And one of...
No, I did watch some Welcome Back, Kotter.
I did, too. Also a great theme song.
Remember The White Shadow?
The White
Shadow?
I
don't have that in my notes, but The White Shadow, the basketball show?
No.
Yeah, I think that came on around the same time, too.
Interesting. I don't remember that one.
I have nothing to say about it. I just wanted to see if you remembered it.
I sure don't. You know what I do remember, Justin? The Munsters.
The Munsters.
Justin.
I feel like the Munsters was a pillar of Nick at Night.
I do too. And
Like,
it surprises me that it was added so late, because in my mind, I'm like,
in
the
my
Munsters
mind,
have just
that
always
was,
been there.
yes, that was like quintessential cornerstone of Nick at Night. The Munsters. Who I watched some Munsters, man. I'll still watch some Munsters.
Love some. Another one that our dad absolutely loved was the Munsters.
Did you prefer the Munsters or Addams Family? I was
Munsters.
always a Munsters guy. I like the Addams Family.
I do too, but I felt like we watched more of the Munsters than the Addams Family.
Oh, for sure we did.
So I feel like that's why I like it more, not because I'm like, oh, it's so much better.
And Fred Gwynn is just so funny.
Oh God, he's so good.
Yes.
And I can't think of the mom's name in real life. Lily Munster's real name. She was also just a gem.
Yes.
But yeah, this was when the Munsters was added. And again, you had like, as it became more popular, you had merchandise for these things.
Oh,
you had board games.
It was becoming, I mean, it was a big thing, you know? You had, do you remember the Get Smart shoe phone? So in Get Smart, he has a shoe that like is a phone.
Oh yeah.
And they made an actual one that like was a real phone.
Did it have like an antenna?
It had the antenna.
I feel like
yeah, and it was a Nick at Night branded Get Smart shoe phone.
So I remember that from the show, but I don't remember. To eBay. For real, have you eBayed it? Let's just for fun.
Nick at Night Get Smart shoe phone.
Now, you can get it for... This is great. $75 plus $9 shipping.
Well, that's not as bad as I thought it would be.
No.
I'm not going to buy it, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Yeah, see?
Inside. Yep. That is...
I might buy it.
You might.
Now that I've seen it.
It actually doesn't have the antenna. It's like on a cord, which is funnier.
Oh, okay.
It is funnier.
It is funnier that way, yeah. Listen, the antenna coming out of the shoe would be funny.
That would be really funny. So, something that Nick at Night started doing in the mid-90s, and I was just talking to our friend Katie about this, was the Block Party Summer.
Now, talk about peak Nick at Night.
My God.
This has got to be one of the things that if you watch Nick at Night in the 90s, it has to be one of your fondest memories, right? The Block Party Summer.
Yes. So
Tell us about Block Party Summer.
It started in 1994, which, as we've discussed, is one of the best years. Just it's a good history. In history of years, it's one of the best. Every night, so obviously this was a summer thing, right? So every night of the week, you had a focus on a different series. You would have a 3-hour block party, get it? And you would have distinctive branding and commercials just for this Block Party Summer. And it was just one of those
branding and commercials for each individual night.
Right, for each individual night, exactly. So you might have Wonder Years, which was one of my absolute faves to watch on Nick at Night at this time period.
Yep.
I mean, also very instrumental to young Amy and her love of Fred Savage.
Sure.
Ooh. I mean, I know that it was all about Winnie Cooper, but Fred Savage.
See, I don't feel weird lusting about after Barbara Eden because I'm an adult now. Like lusting about her now. But you're lusting after a child.
No, at the time I was lusting after. Now, at the time, it would have been because like Fred Savage in the 90s was already like a grown up. Or not a grown, yeah, but like
he was older than us, but by not by
I was like 10,
right.
9 or 10. So either way, it's weird. I guess is what we're trying to say.
It's not weird. I mean, it'd be weird now. It'd be weird now if you watched it and had a crush on.
Like, that's very weird. See, I don't find adult Fred Savage very cute, but when I was a kid, little kid Fred Savage, very cute.
Well, I think Barbara Eden's dead, so I don't really,
Yeah, I think she is. I also
so
think
is Elizabeth Montgomery,
and I think she was because she died young. Elizabeth Montgomery, I feel like, died in her 40s or 50s.
She died in like the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
70s or 80s.
Well, that's a bummer.
Don't cut that.
So
Block Party Summer.
Block Party
I
Summer.
just remember the ads being like, we're grilling out.
Yes.
It looked like a block party. You're grilling out.
Yes.
It's summertime. We're swimming in the pool. It was just such a, and it felt, like when in the summer, when you didn't have school and all that, it's like, you'd be out hanging with friends and stuff or whatever. But when you get home, it was like, I'm just going to watch whatever is on Block Party Summer tonight.
Exactly.
It's
like whatever's on.
A night of, Taxi or The Munsters, I know that they did a lot, or whatever.
Hungry for some classic TV? Sure! Well, Nick at Nite's Block Party Summer is serving up big, zesty 6-episode blocks of classic TV, back-to-back, and in their original order. Blocks so thick you can watch them with a fork. Monster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched Be Wednesdays, Genie Thursdays, and Cotter Fridays. Don't miss this rare opportunity to enjoy well-done shows on your favorite medium, television.
Pretty clever, eh, Mr. Cotter?
Nick at Nite's Block Party Summer, every weeknight all summer long.
Okay, I just want to point out, in this particular promo, you had Munster Mondays, Lucy Tuesdays, Bewitched Be Wednesdays, Genie Thursdays, and Welcome Back, and Cotter Fridays, whatever. Yeah.
And I think that promo was from 1995, I believe.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up, which I think really kind of made Nick at Nite stand apart, was like in that promo, they're advertising, they're playing these in order.
Yes, in their original order. So like
in the original order. So if you watch every week, you're going to get to watch the show as it aired in order. And you got to think, this is years before streaming or shows were on DVD or whatever. Yep. I mean, that
were
was
just watching reruns. However, and a lot of times I think they were doing reruns in order. But, like, if you're only catching it, like, an hour a day, you're certainly not going to, like, see it all in order all the time.
But that was sort of part of the gimmick of the Block Party Summer, was these are going to be in order. And another, like I said, that kind of made Nick at Nite stand out, at least for me, was they would do these, like the bumpers and stuff before the episodes aired, where they would give you, like, info about the show.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be like, this is the first time this character appears, played by so-and-so. From 19 blah blah blah, and they'd just give you a little like 10-second this episode. Here's a little bit of cool trivia
like us
about this episode. Oh, I eat that shit up.
Love it. Love it
all.
Now, so you've got all of this. You've got we're really leading to something really big. And in 1996, you have the creation of TV Land as its own network. So you'd had Nick at Nite existed in a place called TV Land, but they realized, this is so big, we have so much programming, that we could actually have a whole other network where we don't have to cycle shows in and out. We can just have 24 hours.
The idea is
worth
basically
of programming.
a channel that's Nick at Nite, but 24 hours.
Yes.
Instead of just
which was amazing. And I watched the shit out of TV Land.
Yeah.
Loved TV Land.
Yes.
So this was a Viacom and Nickelodeon thing. And of course, originally it was Nick at Nite's TV Land, but then they kind of dropped that.
They dropped the Nick at Nite. Yeah, but that was originally the name of the network, was Nick at Nite's TV Land.
You have, and nowadays, TV Land does original programming in addition to, but for a very long time, this was just the oldies, just the hits. You had That Girl, Gunsmoke, Addams Family, Petticoat Junction, where they're all taking a bath in in the water tank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Green Acres, Hogan's Heroes, I remember watching a lot of the Sonny and Cher, variety hour. That was how I fell in love. Flip Wilson, yes.
Love a good 70s variety show.
Yes.
It's like jokes about Nixon that I don't understand. Because I'm 12.
Yeah.
Because I'm 12 and he's been dead for years.
We ate that shit up.
Oh, yeah, man.
That's how I fell in love with Sonny and Cher. Your
lifelong love affair with Sonny and Cher.
I have a lifelong love affair with Sonny and Cher. And it started with TV Land.
Would it be
I had heard their music.
Love a Share?
Oh, good one.
Or is that a reach? Did that work?
I think it works.
Okay.
I think it works. So this started in 1996. By 99, it was the 10th most watched cable network channel.
Yeah, so there's an audience for this stuff.
Clearly.
Still, and there still is today.
Yeah.
An audience for this stuff. In the late 90s, they brought in some more heavy hitters.
Yes.
I remember it being a big deal.
Uh-huh.
And maybe it was just because I saw commercials all the time and it felt like a huge deal, which that was probably the case. When Happy Days came to Nick at Night.
And that's another one, Justin, where I feel like Happy Days had to have been on there forever because it was always on.
Happy Days didn't come.
I was always watching
Happy Days didn't start on Nick at Night until like 97.
That's crazy to me.
It was crazy. Yeah, I looked it up and I couldn't believe it either. I would have guessed much earlier.
Hey, Fonz.
Hey, this better be important.
Is it true that Happy Days is coming to Nick at Night?
Correct the window.
It's a classic show, huh?
Papa window.
And Nick at Night is celebrating with a marathon of the top 40 episodes?
Exact the window.
Thanks, Fonz. You're the greatest.
Hey.
Watch the Happy Days Top 40 Marathon, starting September 9th at 8, 7 Central, only on Nick at Night.
But
I watched so much
Wonder
Happy Days.
Years, that's another kind of late
Yep.
90s addition to the lineup. Sanford and Son, watched a lot of Sanford and Son.
I like that we're doing it, but at different times, and it must sound great.
That must have been really fun for people to listen to.
Yeah.
Just us
This
making...
is a good podcast, and I
stand by it.
I stand by it.
You know, hesitantly, but I stand by it.
Another
Laverne and
one
Shirley.
that I was gonna say, Laverne and Shirley, Shamil, Shemazel, something
Which
corporate.
was also a spin-off of Happy Days, right?
Yes.
So I think that came on around the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Happy Days... Okay, here's a fun little bit of trivia that I think I omitted from the notes, actually.
Actually,
the first show to air on the TV Land network
okay.
was an episode of Love American Style,
Oh,
which
I
was
never watched
also,
that.
but it was also the backdoor pilot for Happy Days, because
For
Happy
Happy
Days
Days.
was a spin-off of Love American Style.
Okay. I guess I
And-
maybe knew that somewhere in the back of my mind. That sounds about right.
Yeah, but that's like, that was the first show they aired. It was an episode of Love American Style, but really
Yes.
it's also the pilot
It was
episode of
the
Happy
pilot.
Days.
Yeah. They still do that. It's weird.
Oh, yeah. And Happy Days had like 1,000 spin-offs. Laverne and Shirley,
Oh.
Joni and Chachi.
Joni loves Chachi.
Joni loves Chachi.
It did. Didn't they have was there a Fonz spinoff that didn't go anywhere? I feel like maybe.
Certainly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I fucking love Happy Days. Just FYI.
Happy Days is great. And
love it.
talk about generational nostalgia, okay?
Oh my god.
So here we are in the year of our Lord, 2022, waxing nostalgic about Happy Days, about watching Happy Days 20 years ago.
1997.
In the 90s. And in the 90s, it was nostalgic because this is a show from the 70s.
But
But it's about the 50s.
The 50s.
So,
I know.
Yeah.
It's got layers, baby.
Nostalgia inception.
Ooh. That's good.
Talking
Yeah.
in the 2020s about reruns that we remember from the 90s of a 70s show about the 50s.
Yep.
I love Happy Days.
I do. I really loved Happy Days. Like these late 90s ones. Like obviously I did watch a lot of the other stuff, but we moved like a big move. We moved states in 1995, and I can remember we lived in this house for 3 years, and I have such specific memories of living in that house and watching a lot of these shows, which makes sense because that would have been like 96 to 99, and Happy Days, Wonder Years, Laverne and Shirley, like Mork and Mindy. I was watching
All in
lot
the
of
Family.
those at
That was
that
another
time.
one.
All in the Family.
The Jeffersons.
There's a lot of yelling. All in the Family is kind of like...
It's a lot of yelling.
It would get stressful because it was just a lot of yelling. A lot
I like
of
the Jeffersons.
Archie!
WKRP in Cincinnati. That was another one. I
never watched that one.
I watched it a little bit. I know it is very well regarded. Even today. But I remember watching it a little bit. But
it's like a workplace comedy, right? It's like a radio station, kind of like a news radio, but before news radio.
Yes. I know it, like I said, it's pretty well. It's very well regarded even still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't watch it enough to really be able to talk about it intelligently. So I will refrain. As we have learned on the podcast, by the 2000s, everything was turned into shit.
Yeah.
And that's when everything started going downhill. And I won't say they were going downhill immediately. They did begin to focus on more modern shows. And I'm certainly not shitting on these shows because there's a lot of good ones in here. But it was certainly more.
Let me tell you,
we're not talking shows from the 50s and 60s anymore. We're talking about shows that, in some instances, we're still airing. In some instances, or had just ended within the last couple of years. So, and I want you to talk about this because I know that you have some really great memories of staying up late in like college or high school and watching Nick at Night in this era, whereas I wasn't really.
Yeah.
I was watching Letterman and Conan.
I was going to say, you were watching Letterman and Conan.
I was watching Letterman and Conan during these years.
Yeah, in high school, tail end of high school, mostly my college year. So I graduated high school in 2005. And at this point, it was Roseanne, Fresh Prince, The Nanny. You had Home Improvement. Sometimes you'd have Full House. Perfect Strangers.
I love that they brought in some of these old TGIF shows.
Yes.
That like from the late 80s and early 90s that it was like kind of giving them a little new life. Like yeah, we haven't seen Full House in a while. Let's put Full House on, or Perfect Strangers, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But again, these are like different. These are much much more modern shows that have really only been off the air for a couple of years.
Yeah, because like Sabrina went up into the 2000s, so I mean that couldn't have been. And I remember the George Lopez show was on there at some point, and that may have still even been on the air.
I think that was still on the air while it was on Nick at Night. Yeah.
One of my. I want to say, for some reason, our mom was never a big fan of Roseanne Barr, the person. So I feel
I'm not a big fan of Roseanne Barr. I've never been a big fan of Roseanne Barr.
I'm not a fan of Roseanne Barr, the person, but I remember we didn't watch a lot of Roseanne because Mom didn't like her.
That was a good call on Mom's part, because I'm not. Maybe it's I know it's blasphemous to you, and I'm sure it's blasphemous to a lot of listeners, but I don't care for the show. I just don't like the aesthetic of it. I'll acknowledge that it's well written. And I love John Goodman.
Interesting.
I really could never get over she is so unappealing to me. And that's not a physical, I'm not talking about physically. I'm like her personality and comedy grates on my nerves so much that I could never really get past it. And I was never a fan of the show as a result.
Huh. Well, I can. That's certainly something I can understand. I think that I kind of assumed I would not like it as well, and then I remember watching it on Nick at Night and being like, "Oh, I actually like this. Like, this is funny." And so I have a lot of good memories of that time of being. Oh, and
I know. Listen, I know I'm in the minority on that. I know lots and lots of people love Roseanne. Just my opinion.
Well, and I did love Roseanne. It wasn't my favorite that aired at that time, though, and you know that my favorite. It's the Nanny. Listen, they just put The Nanny up last year on HBO Max, and I immediately went through and watched it. I'm already thinking I want to do another rewatch.
You watched the whole thing. How many seasons of that were there?
6.
Okay, so quite a few.
6, I think. Yeah, 5 or 6.
So you watched the whole thing on HBO?
I watched the whole thing on HBO, and I watched it.
Did it hold up?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the thing. Is it really holds up? It's still
I genuinely don't know if I've ever watched a full episode of The Nanny.
Well, and that's another one. You know, I know a lot of people don't like Fran Drescher's voice and the laugh and all that. And
I feel and I don't mean to interrupt you. I apologize because I feel like I keep doing that. I feel like culture has come around on Fran Drescher and realized that she's actually super funny and super hot. Oh,
she's incredibly funny. She's also still incredibly attractive. Yes. But yeah, I mean, she is great on that show. Mm-hmm. And I think, that could be written off, so easily, but I think there's the nanny sort of, it was very successful at the time. It was a CBS show. I think Nick at Night sort of helped to kind of introduce it to some new viewers. And the nanny was one of those shows that I would remember catching episodes here and there when it was on and being like, I like this. But then I never got to watch a lot of it until Nick at Night. And so when I was rewatching it, I remembered quite a bit because I had watched quite a bit. And there were times when I would get home from being out with friends at like 2, 3 in the morning. And you know who was there for me? Fran Fine. And I would watch The Nanny for an hour or two before I fell asleep.
Yeah.
It would go on. Nick at Night would go on until, 6 a.m. or whatever.
Right,
and I knew once we changed over to George Lopez show that it was time for me to go to sleep.
It was officially too late.
It was
for you to be awake.
Too late.
Or
once
too
they
early.
start dropping on that trampoline and I start hearing the song, I know. It's time to go to bed.
Lowrider or whatever the theme song to that was.
It was Lowrider, yeah. And there's a lot of really good fucking theme songs of the shows we're talking about.
Well, sure.
But I think that might be.
I mean, Fresh Prince. We haven't even mentioned Fresh Prince, really.
I know.
But there's another one that was huge. That was
huge
huge on Nick at Night during these years.
That was huge. So I have like a particular nostalgia for this 2000s era.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do.
And I just loved it so much. So for me, I feel like 1995 to probably like 2008, I was watching Nick at Night all the time.
Sure.
Like all the shows that aired between that time period. Like,
well, and that's interesting too, because that's actually the era when things really start to change. As far as Nick at Night, and really the beginning. Okay, so Nick at Night is still very much a thing,
right? Oh yeah,
but it's kind of a shell of its former self. It's not.
It's literally just Friends now, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Oh my god.
In March 2004, so what really begins kind of the death knell. I say death knell,
yeah.
But like as if it doesn't exist anymore, which it does. But kind of the end of the era of like the golden age.
Mm-hmm.
In March 2004, Nielsen, the wonderfully reliable company that is in charge of all TV ratings for some reason, they decide to split Nick at Night and Nickelodeon's ratings report for the first time. And normally we wouldn't get into the weeds too much on this. Mm-hmm. Well, and there are some like for ratings purposes, it's sort of like how Cartoon Network and Adult Swim are two separate television networks.
That's
true.
True.
They just operate on the same channel, and it's like for ratings purposes. Like at whatever time Cartoon Network signs off and it becomes Adult Swim. And so that's what they did here. Was
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah. And I think it used to happen more. That in that kind of like when cable was really kind of coming into its own, it happened a lot more, I think. So they split, which is ironic because around the same time they're changing the branding and advertising for Nick at Night to make it more in line with the new rebranding that they had done to the main Nickelodeon network. But in the meantime, they split them for the ratings, which causes the ratings for Nick at Night to drop.
Yeah.
And so advertising rates fell, and their response to this was to start to change the programming. That's what happens, I guess. So, yeah, really in like the mid-late 2000s is when, you can see as much love as we've shown for these shows like Roseanne, Fresh Prince, The Nanny, these aren't the class. They're probably they're considered classic now because there's so much time. Much time has passed.
But at that time, they were 5 to 10 years old.
And it isn't a thing that happens overnight where they abandon sort of the old format. It just sort of happens slowly, beginning in the aughts, in like the mid-aughts. They bring back the Nick at Night movie in 2007, which is the first time they had aired movies at Nick at Night since 1989.
Wow.
But
what kind of stuff would they show?
It was all like Nickelodeon produced stuff. It was like kids stuff. It was like Good Burger and SpongeBob, the SpongeBob movie, and stuff like that. Now I hope that wasn't geared toward Good Burger.
No, it was geared towards SpongeBob. You know how I feel about him.
I do know. In June 2012, they started airing Nickelodeon shows, old Nickelodeon shows, which I appreciate.
Because it had been long enough for that to be nostalgic. Yeah.
All that and Kenan and Kel, they began airing, which I appreciate, but that's not what Nick at Night's for.
It's not. It's not just any old show. It's Mr. Ed, for God's sakes.
In 2019, they started simulcasting events. Like, they just showed the MTV Movie Awards.
That's not Nick at Night.
It seems like now it's like just like a catch-all for whatever MTV, Nickelodeon, like whatever they don't have a spot for. It's like it goes on. They just
put it in quote-unquote Nick at Night.
Yeah. I did. So I checked. I checked out the current schedules.
Justin.
I checked out the current schedules first for Nick at Night. It's just Friends.
It is,
as far as I could see. It's Friends until about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then they do two episodes of Mike and Molly at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's it. That's it.
God, that makes me so sad.
And I'm not shitting on Friends. I'm not.
No, I like Friends.
I've watched Friends, and it's fine. It's not my favorite, but now TV Land is a little better. I did check out the modern, the current day schedule for TV Land. They have kind of a, they have kind of a, I mean, it's like some that, I mean, it probably is old enough now to be considered classic. More modern stuff like Everybody Loves Raymond and stuff like that. But they are still showing a lot of like the older stuff too, especially during the day, like Gunsmoke and stuff like that. So it's not like it used to be, but it's certainly better than what they're doing on Nick at Night, which is virtually nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you're gonna have a 3-hour block of the same show, it should be part of Block Party Summer. It shouldn't be regular fucking
and here is where, before we wrap up, I want to talk about the state of current cable television. It is horrendous. I haven't had cable for years.
Same.
And it doesn't seem worth it to me anymore.
No.
This art of programming TV, like we were talking about, seems to be dead. Like all these cable networks are just like, hey, what do people like doing? They like binging shit on Netflix, so we're just going to create that experience too, and they'll just show episodes of the same show over and over and over.
And the thing is, it's not like it once was, where it's like a marathon.
It's just this is all we're showing.
No, that's just the programming. It's not like we built it up and this is a special thing.
To me, it's extremely lazy. It's like I can't imagine anyone's working there. It's like, okay, push a button, hit play, and the network takes care of itself. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
To me, it's like there's no thought at all going into, like, maybe with the exception of like 8 to 10 in the evening during prime time.
Yeah.
But like the rest of it is just the same stuff. Marathons of the same kind, and it's a lot of reality shows, and it's just, I mean, it's the same stuff over and over. To I guess create that binge experience, which I think that's just.
I think I'm just like, well, that's what streaming services are for.
That's what streaming services are for.
Like
and I miss the creativity. I miss
I do too.
Watching these promos and watching things about like the Block Party Summer and these different crazy promotions they did to make us care about shows that were old, that like you and I weren't even alive when they were on. The creativity and the innovation and how fun everything was, and it felt like there was thought put into this. There was, and we're presenting this in such a fun and cool way that just doesn't exist. It doesn't seem to exist in a lot of spaces on cable TV anymore. I wanted to read this quote that I found when I was thinking about kind of the legacy of Nick at Night, and I found this quote, and I'm just going to kind of read it verbatim. This is from the New York Times. There was an interview with some of the management team for Nick at Night, and this is from at some point in the early mid 90s. And so the largest demographic, obviously, for Nick at Night, particularly at this point, was older people, people of a certain age. But the second largest audience was young kids.
Kids, right?
We were watching with our parents,
right? And we wanted to watch Newhart,
and like those numbers in that demo would shoot up during the summer when we were all out of school, which is why they did things like Block Party Summer.
Yeah.
And so the New York Times, the interview, they kind of rightfully ask, with so much these kids are being raised on, they use the example of Jurassic Park in the early 90s. But you got to think, we're special effects heavy, big blockbuster movies and flashy, colorful things. Why they questioned why kids raised on stuff like that find these black and white sitcoms from the 50s and 60s so entertaining. Yeah. And the answer, this is Diane Robina, who was the senior VP of programming. And I'm just going to read her quote verbatim. I thought it was pretty good and kind of sad. And research shows that children love watching Nick at Night because they feel safe and comfy. No one ever gets old on Nick at Night. No one ever gets hurt. Children write letters to Lucy and Samantha on Bewitched, blissfully unaware that the actresses are long dead. Yeah. Like, that just, to me, that speaks volumes. Like,
it does. But it's very melancholy.
It is very melancholy. Yeah. And I think we use the term timeless, and I think that for so many of these shows, not all of them necessarily, like we said, but there is a real timeless quality to these shows that, it's amazing that we're still in 2022 talking about them. Yes, we're waxing nostalgic about the 90s, but we're talking about things that were created decades before. But
I would sit down and watch Bewitched now.
Sure.
And I probably would have never known about Bewitched.
A whole lot of these shows.
Beyond
I think they still
just
hold
like
up.
Like, I think that Nick at Night, it obviously was exposing an entirely new generation to these older shows, and now we have nostalgia for watching them, even though they started and ended long before we were even born. Some of the stars were gone,
When we started talking about it, and we talked about the idea of like an oldies network, but for TV, like you and I have nostalgia for that oldies music, because that's what our parents listened to as kids, so that's what we listened to a lot, even though that stuff came out a long time before we were even around. Yeah. It's just interesting to me that they have that kind of, it's like a generational nostalgia that kind of, it was nostalgic for our parents, and now it's nostalgic for us. And, and it's also interesting to think that, like, a lot of people our age with kids who are maybe nostalgic for some of this stuff, their kids are going to be nostalgic for shit from the 80s and 90s, which is decades before they were born. Yeah. Just because that's what their parents were into.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's how you keep this stuff going. That's how that's how these, and it's not just television, that's how these things kind of maintain a life long after they're over, and long after a lot of the people who made them aren't even here anymore.
I think in a time...
Sorry, go ahead.
I think in a time before streaming and things like that, how would we watch shows like that? Well, it'd be in syndication. And what Nick at Night was doing was it was taking that and it was dedicating a block of time every single evening in prime time for you to experience these shows that probably only run like on UPN in the morning or something for like older people. You know what I mean? Like, as a kid, you weren't getting a chance to watch those shows if they were on in syndication elsewhere. And so it felt like something that was purely for the love of television.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds funny, but yeah, I think so.
It is. And it was just like, hey, you had this network that just truly loved this programming and wanted us to see it. There's an ice cream truck going by. I wonder if it's going to pick up on the mic. Talk about nostalgia.
I can hear it, and we're leaving it in. Yeah.
100%. It is April 19th. This is the first ice cream truck. I bet you can't hear it.
Do you need to take a break so you can run outside and get
bingo?
Get it?
Well, maybe.
What are you going to get?
It's like 54 degrees today.
I was going to say, it's cold today.
It's cold today.
There's a frost warning tonight.
This ice cream guy does not give a shit. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't either.
No, I'd eat some ice cream right now.
I'll eat some ice cream, sure.
Sounds great.
The good news is, though, that despite the fact that, Nick at Night still exists, but not the way it used to.
Yeah.
And there's still TV land. You still can watch a lot of these shows.
That's right.
And there are easy, free ways to watch a lot of these shows. Of course, you have streaming services. A lot of them are on streaming services. That isn't necessarily free, but a lot of these shows are available in their entirety. Again, it's not the same as Nick at Night. You don't have the fun programming, but you can still watch the shows.
Yes, you can.
Also, there are a
and
couple
then you can just go on YouTube in between the episodes and watch like bumpers.
Watch old Nick at Night bumpers.
Yeah.
That's
just
what I'm
create.
gonna do.
We should create a Nick at Night. We should have a Nick at Night night.
A Nick at Night.
Yeah.
I love it.
Where we do programming and you queue up.
Now this is different. This is different from Tatters and Taters.
This will be different. Okay. Tatters and Taters will be a Christmas thing.
Okay.
This we can do. We should do a block party summer.
Can we still have Fixins?
We can always have Fixins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. There are a couple over-the-air channels. If you have an antenna, which you should, you could pick up a lot of weird, fun stuff with an antenna these days. Antenna TV is a classic television network that, depending on where you live, you can pick up. And also Me TV, which is kind of, they have sort of picked up the mantle of old Nick at Night, and those networks truly are like classic TV 24 hours a day. So like you can turn on. Let's see what's on.
Yeah, let's see.
Me TV schedule.
I hope it's Happy Days. You can, while he's looking that up, I'll mention that you can also, we have like Pluto TV, which is like the free app where it's like cable, and they'll have like different, they have like classic rewind or whatever, like channels, and they'll have like whole channels dedicated to shows. A couple months ago, I got on a real big Price is Right kick, and they were like only showing like 70s Price is Right.
Nice.
And so like when there was like nothing else to watch, or it was, I was still working at home for a little bit, and so if I was like working at home and I didn't know what else to put on, I would put on old Price is Right. And it would be like super young Bob Barker and like 70s, like really early 80s, and it's so much fun. Yeah. So Pluto has some of that stuff as well. What's on Me TV right now, though?
At the moment, MASH is on Me TV.
Oh, there you go.
By the way, tomorrow night, Happy Days. Here's the I'm just gonna real quick. Here's the schedule for the rest of the day and into tonight on Me TV. We've got MASH. We've got Andy Griffith Show.
Oh, that was a big one, yeah.
Gomer Pyle, USMC. Green Acres. Hogan's Heroes. The Carol Burnett Show.
Yeah.
Perry Mason, The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Mannix, Cannon, and Barnaby Jones. That's a damn good lineup. And that's just today. And now
Is that a free channel?
Yeah, so I get it here.
See, we can't get it. We've tried an antenna and we can't get it to work where we are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. I bet I could stream it online or something.
Oh, yeah, you can.
So, yeah, you can still have the Nick at Night experience a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. You can at least see the shows.
And you can at least see the shows.
Go on YouTube for the bumpers.
That's right. Well, this has been such a fun episode, reliving Nick at Night, and the layers of nostalgia. So obviously, on social media, as we talk about Nick at Night, please share with us your favorite Nick at Night shows. Also, your favorite theme songs. And real quick before we go, I'm going to ask Justin if he had to choose one Nick at Night show to be his favorite, what would it be?
I have to choose one to be my favorite.
Yes.
I'm gonna eliminate Looney Tunes from contention because I feel like that's different.
Yeah.
Probably the Munsters.
It's a good call.
Probably the Munsters would be my favorite. The Munsters.
Do you have a favorite theme song?
The Munsters theme song's good. Taxi. The themes of Taxi's great. The Welcome Back, Kotter theme's really good.
Welcome back. I can't remember the other words. Welcome back.
A lot of singing in this episode.
It's been a very musical episode.
I stand by it.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. I think the people like it,
Well, Yeah.
Speaking
maybe.
of the people.
Speaking of the people.
Speaking of the people, listen, guys, we're on social media. So if you're enjoying the Cool Kids Club podcast, and I hope that you are, you can find us on social media on Instagram and Twitter at Cool Kids Club Pod. You can also find us on Facebook if you just search for Cool Kids Club Podcast. I personally am on Instagram and Twitter at Amy Reads, TN. And I also have a YouTube channel that I have not uploaded to in like 2 months. I'm not sure what my deal is. Yeah, like a month and a half. I'll probably get back to it at some point. But it's also called Amy Reads, where I read books and I talk about them.
Indeed.
I
have the occasional wrestling podcast, Blue Bar Cage, which you can find wherever you found this podcast. I'm also on social media if you want to follow me personally. Instagram and Twitter at Lousy with Ghosts. Also want to shout out Brian Wakefield for our wonderful theme song. As always, check out.
It's a banger.
It's a banger.
Yep.
Check out him and all of his various projects at brianwakefieldmusic.com. He's got some cool stuff in the works, so I advise you to check that space. Yeah, that's about it, right?
That's about it. Well, until next time.
I feel like watching some classic TV tonight.
Man,
I feel like
maybe I can talk Scott into like a classic TV night.
Go out and see if you can catch that ice cream truck and get some ice cream.
Yeah. I don't hear him anymore, so I feel like I'm going to have to run.
You might have to, but that's okay.
But
You're
I'm
getting ready to eat
sneaks.
ice cream. You should probably burn some calories beforehand anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Earn that ice cream.
You just got to earn it. Yeah.
And fire
I'm
up
gonna
some
watch
classic TV. I might get the old antenna going. Watch a little MASH and the Meat TV lineup looked good tonight.
Yeah, it did. Ooh, this is sounding like a pretty good night. Well, I hope you guys enjoy your night. I hope you watch some Nick at Night shows. And until next time, guys, stay cool.
Stay cool.
Just do it. Just, please.
Please, God.
Oh, my God.
Please, God. My family's dying.